Okay, it looks like we've identified all of the callers on the line. Again, my name is LaShawn Douglas with the Office of the Executive Director. Thank you for joining the meeting today. This is our second resident meeting with Judiciary House for the RAD applications. I just want to state a few housekeeping rules before we get started. I just want to remind you all that the line is muted. So at all times, I will try to keep you muted. If you can also make sure that you don't unmute yourself until we open the floor for question and answer period. We will also have about 2 to 3 minutes per for the Q&A per person. So just trying to keep being mindful of the time. We want to keep all questions and comments to 2 to 3 minutes. We want to also remind you that the Q&A period should be used for RAD related questions, not necessarily any personal related unit issues. We do have Mr. Poles on the line. And then we'll also provide a point of contact sheet for anything that requires any additional follow-up that is not RAD related. And then we also want you to just be mindful that this meeting is being recorded. So if you could, if you have a specific question regarding your unit, we did take attendance, so we have your name. So if you cannot list or not share your unit number out loud,
Nicole Dixon has joined the meeting.
This meeting will be recorded and shared. We will look up your unit number when you ask your question if it is unit related. So with that, I am going to, before I pass the floor over, I just wanted to get the person that just called in. You're unmuted. Your name again?
Nicole Dixon.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. I'm going to go ahead and mute your line. We're just getting ready to get started. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Jose Sousa and Alex Morris.
Thank you, LaShawn. I guess I'll take it from here. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Morris. I am the Chief of Planning, Design, and Construction for the DC Housing Authority. We're going to be doing a brief presentation. It is a similar presentation to one we gave about a month ago, but it has a few updates. And we're going to be talking about the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, our overview for the DCHA properties that are going to be impacted by the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, and specifically about Judiciary House. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So first of all,
Regina Jackson
hello, Ms.
has
Jackson.
joined the meeting.
LaShawn, did you want to catch that one, or shall I keep going?
I called it. You can keep going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, on slide 2, for those of you who are not following on the video, on page number 2, our mission at DCHA is to preserve, manage, and develop quality affordable housing for extremely low through moderate income households, foster sustainable communities, and cultivate human capital opportunities for residents to improve their lives. Next slide, please. So here's an agenda for our call today. We're going to introduce you to a few DCHA staff. You already know LaShawn Douglas, who is our Master of Ceremonies, my colleague, Jose Sousa. Jose, would you like to say hello? Or not? Katrina Jeter, who is with our mobility team. Katrina, would you like to say hello? Katrina will be joining us shortly. And Ron
This is
Fisher.
Deborah Jackson with the mobility team. So Katrina doesn't jump on. I am here, and we'll be answering any questions and talk about the mobility process.
Okay. And Ron Fisher of the Office of Resident Services will be speaking about services that we can provide to you as residents through our Office of Resident Services. So for the agenda today, we're going to be going through why RAD, explaining, why would we do RAD? Why are we doing RAD? And what are the facts of RAD? An overview of Judiciary House, other planned RAD transactions that we're planning for other DCHA properties, We'll talk specifically about Colorado and Columbia, which are two properties that were public housing and are now converted to housing choice vouchers through the RAD program. Do a process overview of the relocation program. Introduce you to our Office of Resident Services. Ron Fisher will be speaking. Talk about our resident engagement process and the implications given our COVID-19 considerations, and then talk about next steps. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So the first question is, why would DCHA apply for HUD's RAD program for a property? Well, the facts are these. The federal government does not provide enough funding to make the improvements that residents of public housing deserve. And RAD is an option to obtain more sustainable funding choices for public housing authorities and improve the public housing property by converting to a Section 8 contract and funding stream rather than Section 9. Section 8 is also called Housing Choice Vouchers, and Section 9 is what is traditionally thought of as the public housing program in HUD. DCHA's capital needs were estimated as of last year to be about $2.5 billion across our entire public housing portfolio. And so if HUD isn't giving us enough money to make improvements and maintain those properties, we need to look at other options. And this other option that HUD offers is the RAD conversion process to convert a public housing property to housing choice vouchers, or Section 8. Next slide. So RAD is a HUD program that allows DCHA to fund major building improvements and stabilize federal funding for the future. The RAD program and the Housing Choice Voucher program specifically have been more stable from year to year in terms of operating subsidy and available money for capital improvements relative to public housing. And RAD offers rehab opportunities for buildings with no resident displacement, no loss of housing benefits, and no change in the rent calculation of 30% of adjusted gross income, unless you're paying a flat or ceiling rent, in which case there would be an adjustment made over a period of years to bring you to a 30% of adjusted gross income. Next slide. So RAD stands for the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. It was created in 2012 during the Obama administration. HUD crafted this federal program as a response to fulfill the growing gap between decreasing federal funding and increasing capital needs of the public housing units. And because federal funding is often not enough to provide for the high upkeep costs of existing public housing properties, RAD allows a public housing authority like DCHA to move away from the federal annual contributions contract, which is the subsidy that HUD gives us for public housing, to a Section 8 project-based assistance. This makes it possible to obtain funding from private and alternative sources to put together with the funding we have to improve capital needs of buildings. That's how we can make more improvements, as we can put private and public dollars together through the project-based Section 8 program. Next slide. So how does RAD work? RAD allows the Public Housing Authority to work with partners who want to invest in building improvements. And this can give DCHA the opportunity to borrow money for the improvements, to seek bond issuance for improvements, to work with philanthropic partners like foundations or charitable organizations, and take on development partners or investors. Next slide. So what would DCHA do with RAD? The scope of work for a given property, and you can see this is a photograph of the street-facing side of Judiciary House. The scope of work can include apartment renovations like new kitchens, bathrooms, and finishes, updated systems like electrical, plumbing, fire, and mechanical systems, heating and air conditioning, making energy efficiency improvements, replacing windows, roofs, and building exterior components, enhancing community spaces, and improving building security. I'm just going to pause here for a second and note the fact that we are currently recipients of DC money, local district money, and we're making many of these improvements currently at Judiciary House. You may, if, as a resident, have noticed that we are renovating the garage and working on the alley behind the building. We're putting a brand new roof on Judiciary House. We are making energy efficiency improvements by means of adding insulation to that new roof and also adding insulation to the walls as we do unit by unit renovation. We are updating all of our electrical, plumbing, fire, and mechanical systems within the building. And we're also replacing the windows on all of the apartments and doing repairs to the balconies. So you may have noticed already that there's work being done, removing railings from balconies and getting prepped for the work on the balconies. The windows will be being replaced this year. And we're about to kick off our first phase of unit renovations on about 28 units in phase 1. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so for Judiciary House, RAD will also offer the benefits of having the same number of apartments in the building after the conversion as before, the same configuration of units before and after, a phased construction to minimize any moves, and RAD funding will permit DCHA to fund the remaining half of the dollars necessary to complete rehabilitation. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we're currently using district funds to renovate a portion of the units at Judiciary House, but we currently only have money to do the first 108 units. There are 271 units in the building, and so it's a little more than half, but we need that conversion with RAD in order to access private dollars to finish the renovation work on all of the units and work our way completely around that building. So all of the units will be eventually renovated. Some will be renovated with current dollars we have in our hand from the district government, and some will be renovated after we convert. Next slide. So this is just a fact sheet on Judiciary House. Many of you, I'm sure, already know this. There are a total of 271 units at Judiciary House. Of that, the majority are studios. There are also 1- and 2-bedroom units in the building. There are currently 214 residents at the building, of which 136 are seniors, and there are 208 households. So it just says at the bottom, 50% of Judiciary House renovations can be performed with existing rehab and maintenance dollars through the district, and access to RAD converted funds would permit us to rehabilitate the other half of the building. Next slide. Here's another example on this slide of, this is slide number 11 or page 11 if you're following on paper, of what our plan is for Judiciary House, slated for completion on or about March 2023, which is still 2.5 years away. It does take time to do all of this, but we currently have about $15.6 million in capital invested in the building, replacing the fire alarm system, replacing the roof, repairing the parking garage, replacing all of the windows in the building, doing balcony repairs, and a full rehab of 100, I said 108, but it's actually 118 apartments for about $12 million over the next 2 years. And that RAD money will allow us to continue and finish all 271 units, as I said before. Next slide. I also wanted to provide, we didn't have plans at the last meeting, so I wanted to provide everybody with plans of the building. This is a ground floor plan with a color code that shows phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. You'll notice that the phase 1 units all end in either an 06, 07, 08 number. Let me just make sure that's true. It's actually 06, 08, 09, 07. On the ground floor, it would consist of apartments number 106 and 108. Phase 2, we're going to jump over to the resident council office and do a stack of units, including the resident council office. And then on the second floor, go to the next slide, please. We're going to be doing units labeled 226, 228, and 201. You may wonder why we're going out of sequence. That's kind of jumping around. The reason is because there's some specific issues with the electrical system around the units around the elevators. We want to address that in the next phase of work. And so we're going to be going from the corner on the east side of the building over to the middle of the building behind the elevators, and then jumping back to do phases 3 and 4. So that gives you an idea of how many units we're going to be addressing with the city money under the current allocated funding. Go one more slide, please, and I'll show the typical upper floor plan. With this upper floor plan, you can see that if you have a unit number 2, like a 807, 808, or 809, or 907, 908, 909, you are in phase 1. If you're in phase 1, you already know that because you've been contacted by the mobility team and the residents have already been moved to other temporary units within the building. The next phase will be folks who live in the 27, 28, and 01 units on each floor. So 827, 828, 801, or any other number like that on any other floor, you would be in phase 2. Next slide, please. In addition to Judiciary House, we also have some other RAD conversions currently going on at DCHA. One of them is something we call the MELVO, which is an acronym for 5 properties: Montana Terrace in Ward 5, Elvins Road in Ward 8, Lincoln Road, and Villager and Ontario Road. So they're kind of scattered across the entire District of Columbia. That property already has what's called a commitment for housing assistance payment. So it's already moving through the RAD process, and we're expecting to close later this year or early next year on that and convert the property. In addition, we're also currently conducting meetings with Kelly Miller and LaDroit about another RAD conversion that is on the same schedule track as Judiciary House. And we're also looking at further engagement in the later part of this month and in September for the Potomac Gardens Senior Mid-Rise and Family Mid-Rise, as well as Langston Terrace and Langston Additions, which we're calling collectively Langston Dwellings. And then in the future, we may also do RAD conversions on pieces of Stoddard Terrace and Benning Terrace. Next slide, please. So Columbia in Colorado is a current example of a RAD converted property. We just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Columbia Road in Colorado Apartments were public housing. They consisted of a total of 44 units of public housing converted to RAD, converted through RAD to project-based vouchers. The RAD conversion was completed and approved by HUD in May of 2018. The Columbia Road and Colorado Apartments RAD conversion had no additional financing added to it, so we just converted the building. We didn't do any renovation work there. DCHA created the Colorado Columbia LLC, that's a limited liability corporation, as an owner of these 2 sites, but we are the sole owner of that entity. So DCHA really owns the property, but in order to do the RAD conversion, we have to create an LLC in order to be the named owner. Colorado and Columbia LLC is 100% controlled by DCHA, as I said. Under RAD, project-based housing assistance payment is between Colorado Columbia LLC and DCHA. And the units converted to RAD at both sites continue to be managed by DCHA's Property Management and Operations Division, PMO. Next slide, please. So what are my rights as a resident? You are guaranteed the right to return with no rescreening and full relocation assistance if you need to move temporarily during construction. After RAD conversion, the resident councils will still be funded in the exact same way they're funded today, and resident rent will be based upon 30% of adjusted income. Next slide. Now I'd like to turn it over to, and I'm not sure, Deborah, are you doing this? Okay, so yeah. Deborah Jackson will be taking you through the relocation process. This is slide or page 18 if you're following on paper.
Hi, everyone. You may remember me. I was your community navigator at Judiciary House and have been there through the start of this and throughout last summer talking to you guys. So through the relocation process, the first thing that we will do is DCHA's relocation team works in partnership with residents about future development and relocation plans, which include informing residents on phasing and scheduling move dates. Katrina Jeter is our relocation coordinator, and she's the one that has really been on the ground, really talking to you guys, doing surveys along with other mobility specialists, really getting to know you guys and your preferences. After renovation schedules are finalized and impacted, residents have been informed. DCHA relocation team completes relocation surveys to assess special needs and circumstances. If you have not had one of these surveys done, we will be coming to you shortly, depending on where you are in the process. And in those surveys, we'll be asking you specific questions, like what maybe your needs are. Do you need handicap accessible unit? Do you have a hospital bed, and does that need to be broken down? So we ask individual questions without anybody else knowing the questions we're asking you, because it's a one-on-one setting. Number 3, DCHA's relocation team will work with each household to prepare for relocation. We'll provide necessary packing materials, notified households of upcoming move dates. Katrina Jeter is the one again that schedules the packing materials to be picked up. If you are unable to pack yourself, we will assist with packing, and we provide all of the necessary elements coming to packing, whether it be boxes or wrapping your dishes, whatever you need, we have accessible in the office or delivered to your unit. Number 4, DCHA's relocation team will be present on the day of your move to supervise activity and ensure all relocation needs are satisfied. Again, I know that there has been some moves going on, and Ms. Jeter has been on site during that process. Number 5, DCHA's relocation team will hire a quality moving company to move families. Services include the moving of belongings, dismantling and reassembling all furniture, and packing assistance if needed. Number 6, DCHA's relocation team will relocate families from current units to temporary or permanent units where applicable, pay relocation costs, and of course, always stay in touch with the families. Between your property manager, the relocation staff, the mobility staff, our main focus is to talk to you guys from the beginning, middle, and end of every single process through this relocation. That way, we really inform you of each and every step that you're going through with RAD or redevelopment.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Now I'd like to introduce Ron Fisher from Office of Resident Services, who will be telling us about the services available to residents at Judiciary House and residents across the DCHA portfolio.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ron Fisher, and I'm the Family Self-Sufficiency Manager in the Office of Resident Services. I wanted to briefly discuss some of the offerings from ORS, as we've come to be known, that are available to residents during this transition period. Amongst the sections that I wanted to highlight was primarily our Workforce Development Initiative, which is available for individuals that are not only seeking to go ahead and be placed in a possible employment opportunity, but also looking for training opportunities as well. We offer a slew of workshops available, assisting people from resume development as well as Microsoft Office training. We have partnerships with UDC that is on site, as well as reaching out to people remotely to assist them with various looks to go ahead and get them employable. In addition to that, we also have the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, which right now is working with individuals that are hopeful to pursue homeownership. And as a whole, the Office of Resident Services has resources available for us residents to tap into that can assist them with financial literacy and credit counseling assistance. I know that with the safety concerns out there because of the pandemic, we have forged relationships with a number of different nonprofit entities throughout the district that can assist individuals remotely as well as virtually to receive necessary training and knowledge to go ahead and better position them for financial stability moving forward. And to go ahead and find out all about these offerings more specifically, I encourage everyone to reach out directly to their community navigator, which is Dorothy Freeman Gavin. She has replaced Ms. Jackson, who referenced that she was formerly the navigator at Judiciary House. Ms. Gavin's direct contact information for those that aren't following on paper is 202-770-9093. Again, her number is 202-770-9093. I greatly encourage everyone to go ahead and reach out and communicate whether you're interested in these particular services that I just named, or if there are other concerns that you have and are seeking wraparound supportive services to assist you. Please make that known to Ms. Freeman Gavin so that she can go ahead and begin working to resolve that particular issue for you as quickly as possible. Thanks, everybody, for your time.
Thank you very much, Ron. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So RAD resident engagement. So right now we're in the pre-submitting to HUD phase. Prior to submitting application to HUD for what's called a CHAP, which is a commitment for housing assistance payment. DCHA will provide residents with a resident information notice. You should all have that by now. This will convey general written information on potential project plans and basic resident rights under RAD, and DCHA will conduct at least 2 resident meetings. We are currently in the second round of resident meetings prior to the application for a CHAP. DCHA must secure board approval. That's our Board of Commissioners, the DCHA Board of Commissioners, to submit RAD applications to HUD. DCHA will submit to HUD a written summary of all resident comments and the DCHA responses that were given to those comments as part of its application. So everything that you ask tonight, or that you ask later tonight at the 6 o'clock call, or that you ask prior at the prior round of meetings or in any future meeting, will be recorded by DCHA. We will write down your question and we will provide you with a written response on paper back to you so that you can be fully informed of answers to your questions. In the future, DCHA must hold 2 additional meetings with residents before submitting the financing plan to HUD. The financing plan comes after the CHAP is approved. So what happens is we go to the Board of Commissioners and get approval this fall to submit a CHAP to HUD. Once HUD approves that CHAP, we then have additional things we need to do to go on the track to closing a RAD conversion with HUD. One of those things is submitting a financing plan to HUD as to how we're going to finance the building improvements and operate the property. We'll hold 2 additional meetings during that period before submitting that financing plan. We may also do additional meetings if necessary, if plans change or if we require additional extensions of time from HUD. We will continue to keep you in the loop and schedule periodic meetings. DCHA will ensure effective communication with persons with disabilities and language barriers. This means making meetings accessible to various types of disabilities, which could limit communication. And DCHA complies with the DC language access laws. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Jose. My colleague, Jose Sousa.
Thank you. Again, thank you for everyone who's been able to join us for today's meeting, and for those of you who are back for a second time. While we would prefer to be meeting with you in person, we understand that given the current public health emergency, it's in everyone's best interest to try to get by with the meetings that we've been able to do thus far, and that's why we're meeting digitally today. We know that a virtual meeting is a poor substitute for what we could have accomplished in person. However, we feel like this is still important enough for us to continue to move forward with. And we have been making phone calls both before and after each of these meetings to help answer questions that you may have, because it's urgent for us to make sure that we are pursuing this strategy with HUD so that we can make these improvements at Judiciary House. We are operating under a federal waiver from HUD that allows us to conduct these meetings remotely. As you've seen thus far, based upon the first meeting, we are collecting questions and answering them, not just verbally here on this call, but we are transcribing those questions. We included that transcript of the questions and answers back to all of you in all of the packets that were distributed to you all last Friday. And those same questions and answers are also posted on the dcha.us page. All meeting materials, all recordings of videos are on there. If you click on the Judiciary House entry, you'll find everything in there. Additionally, we're maintaining an attendance log of everybody who's participating. This is so that we can make sure we are capturing those of you who are taking part. And my colleague, LaShawn, has been dutifully keeping track of that with the support of a lot of our team members to make sure that we've got your names there. You know, your participation is important. Just as we would appreciate your presence in person, we appreciate your presence in the forum that we're in right now. We have translated materials and mailed them off to residents and everything that we've sent. In addition, we'll be following up with those residents who have an additional language need, and we'll be conducting one-on-one calls with them while using our language access line to ensure that they have caught the entire scope of what we've been discussing over the course of these meetings. And lastly, again, we will follow up with you again at the end of this meeting to address any questions that you have via some phone calls that we'll make. But we really do appreciate your participation today and on everything we've been able to do thus far.
Thank you, Jose. So what can you expect for next steps? As Jose already said, and I said prior, residents will receive written answers to all questions posed before and at this meeting. Residents will receive an additional phone call and flyer about our next meeting in August. That would be now, actually. That should have been fixed. So if we have an additional meeting, there will be an additional flyer. There is an email address if you're interested in submitting questions about our transformation plan. It's called transformationplan@dchousing.org. For any property-specific questions, please contact Mr. Anthony Poles at apoles@dchousing.org or at his phone number, 202-724-8619. Mr. Poles is also on the line tonight, so if you have any questions that he can answer, I'd be happy to direct them to him and have him respond. For any relocation-related questions, please contact Ms. Katrina Jeter at kjeter@dchousing.org or at her phone number, which is 202-926-7004. And you can always call the Transformation Plan phone number at 202-996-8526 or email transformationplan@dchousing.org with any RAD or transformation plan questions. We look forward to working with you on this important initiative. And with that, I think we are at the end of our presentation, and we can kick it back over to Ms. LaShawn Douglas, who will open up the meeting for questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alec. Quickly, before we go into the Q&A period, I just wanted to capture the few folks that joined the call. What I'm going to do is just unmute you one by one and just capture your name, and then we'll go back and then we'll just call names for the Q&A period, okay? So the first number I see is 202-905. You're unmuted. Can you state your name for us, please? Hi, you're unmuted. Caller with the number beginning in 202-905. Are you there? Okay. I'm going to mute that line and go to the next person. Caller, you're unmuted. Your telephone number is beginning in 202-471. Excuse me, 202-417. You are unmuted. That's you. Yes, we can hear you. Can you give us your name?
Vivian Brown.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Vivian Brown.
Brown. Thank you, Ms. Brown. I'll go ahead and mute your line. All right. 202-277. You're unmuted. Can you give us your name, please?
Jacqueline Robinson.
Jacqueline Robinson?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and mute your line. Then I have 202-290. You're unmuted. Can you provide your name? Caller, you're unmuted.
Are you saying 290-8489?
Yes, I have you. Can you provide your name for the attendance log, please?
Alton McKenzie.
I'm sorry, say the first name.
Alton, A-L-T-O-N.
Alton, thank you so much. And it was Mackenzie?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna mute your line. And then I have another caller, 202-840. You're unmuted. Can I get your name?
Are you speaking of 1843?
I can't see the last four digits, but yes, you're unmuted.
1843.
I just need to capture your name. What's your first and last name?
Deirdre Chestnut.
Deirdre?
Yes.
Thank you.
Chestnut. Thank you, Ms. Chestnut. I'm gonna go ahead and remute your line, and then we're gonna open the floor for Q&A. Okay. So I think we've captured everyone except for a 202-905 number. I'm gonna go back to that number. So I'm gonna just read your name, and if you can let me know if you have any questions, and then we'll direct them to the DCHA staff that can help you. Shakita Scott, do you have any questions? Shakita?
No.
Okay,
No.
and I believe Ms. Briscoe is with you. Does she have any questions?
Yes, I was trying to understand when what phase is my apartment in? I'm
Okay.
on the 6th
I'm
tier.
sorry. And it was Deanna Briscoe, correct?
Yes.
Okay, one moment.
We could put the presentation back on.
Do it again.
Okay, so if you're in the 6th floor,
No.
and did you say that you're on the 6th floor?
No, I'm on the 3rd floor.
Oh, 3rd floor. Okay, well, that works for this too. So if you're on the 3rd floor and your apartment number ends in 0, 7, 8, or 9, then you are in phase 1. If your apartment number ends in 27, 28, or 01, you're in phase 2. If your apartment number ends in 05 or 06, you're in phase 3. And if your apartment number ends in 02, 03, or 04, you're in phase 4. If you're not in any of those areas that are in color in the 4 phases, then your work would be taking place more than a year and a half from now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute your line.
Okay.
I have Deirdre Chestnut.
Yes. Good afternoon. The only
Can I get a-
concern. Mute your phone, Nicole. Okay. Yes. The only question I have is, I see they're taking the rails off the balcony. I live on a 7th floor, and I also heard that they were nailing people in their apartments. As far as nailing the balconies. I wanted to know, when was the 7th floor going to be done?
I'll take that. So we're doing the balconies vertically, not horizontally. So we're not going floor by floor. We're starting on the west side along 8th Street and working our way toward the east, and then working our way around the alley side. One of the first things the contractor did, which you noticed, I'm sure, is that they took the metal railings off the balconies. The reason they did that is because we need to fix some of the concrete, and they need to get all that metal off of there. It was leaning on the concrete and causing pressure. They had to get it off so that they could do the repairs. All of the repairs will take place over the course of about a year. I do not know when your balcony is scheduled to be done, but if you send a question to Mr. Poles, we can get a schedule for you that gives you an approximate date of start and finish.
Okay, but also my question is, I don't think it's safe for you all I don't think any of us are children as far as that we're going to go over our balcony.
Right.
Because if so, we would have. The second thing is, I think it's totally unsafe to nail the balconies down. Last year, I believe, I know I videoed the whole thing live. We had a fire here, a bad fire, to where my balcony, I was asleep, and first my balcony was full of smoke, and an alarm woke me up. Second of all, I'm in a scooter, but I can also walk.
Mm-hmm.
But I have COPD. By the time I got in the hallway and got my clothes on and got in the hallway, it was so clouded with smoke I couldn't see whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the middle of the building, like in the middle where the elevator is.
Right.
I would have never made it to the end of the hall without choking, because I had the smoke in my apartment had started choking me when I woke up. My thing is, if we are to have another fire, where's our escape, as far as if our house is smoked and if the hallways are smoked? I feel like the balcony is the only escape. When I did go to the balcony, the fire department had their ladder directly in front of my apartment, which I just stayed on the balcony until things were solved. But my thing is, what would have been my escape by me not being able to see or breathe already, as far as when I opened my door?
Ma'am, did you say you live on the 7th floor?
Yes, sir. My question was, what would have been my escape?
Yeah,
I had
no, I
no way to
understand.
go out in that hall because I would have died from the smoke. So my only escape was to my balcony and to shut the balcony and stay there just in case I needed to get rescued. But my thing is, I hear y'all are nailing the balconies.
We are securing the doors to the balconies during the work because the railings are going to be removed and it would not be safe for you to be on the balcony.
Well,
If you're
I
on the
think
set,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think we all know that. My thing
Yeah.
is, by you all taking the rails off, we know we should not go out on that balcony. We all have knowledge enough to know not to do that. And far as falling, if anybody wanted to fall, I think they would have done that like I mentioned before. My thing is, the majority of people in this building are handicapped or disabled. My second thing is, what is going to be our escape? How are you all going to unnail all the balconies if that fire would happen again? So we cannot go in the hallway, and there is no way but to go on the balcony. And then all our balconies are nailed. So I'm asking you, do you think that's safe for us?
the balcony, if you're on the 7th floor, the balcony would not be a means of escape for you. I know that may sound harsh, but the property.
No, I feel you're incorrect because, like I spoke earlier, I said that the fire truck had their balcony. Had their ladder. So you can't say that's not no way to escape. That is a way to escape because the like I told you also, I recorded live. So the ladder was past my it was on my balcony and past my balcony. So if I needed an escape, I would have got on that ladder. So you're saying there would have still not been no escape, and that's not true because the ladder was past my balcony up to almost where I could see the 10th floor. So what I'm saying is you're going to lock people in their apartments, and if a fire I think it's a fire hazard. Fire, it's not safe. So for someone for their balconies to be locked down and we have a fire again and we're not able to get in that staircase and get down those steps, is just my thing. Just something to think about, okay? But I surely don't want my balcony, when you do get to my floor, to be nailed down whatsoever. Like I said, I have COPD. I have breathing problems already. So, like I said, I was woken up, not by the fire alarm, by choking, coughing, almost like can't breathe. Then the fire alarm finally went off by the time I got my clothing and stuff on. But my thing is, when I got in the hall, I couldn't see and I couldn't breathe. So my best escape was to my balcony, to where I could get air. And when I did go on my balcony, the ladder was already up above my head, but it was laying. I can show you where the ladder was laying on my balcony, so I had no problem with hopping on that ladder. So we can move on to the next person, but I just wanted to give you all something to think about. And I'm not only thinking for me, I'm thinking also for my neighbors in the building. Like, if something happens, how are you all going to unnail all these balconies? So in other words, we're going to be trapped. So you could just move on, and that could be something y'all think about.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your comment. I do take it seriously. We'll look into that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Chestnut. I'm going to go ahead and mute your line.
Shoot. How the hell are they going to nail it in?
All right. Dolores Miller, you are unmuted. Do you have any questions or comments?
I do. My question would be, if HUD does not approve what housing wants to do, how will they go forward?
It's a good question.
So your question is, if HUD doesn't approve the RAD conversion?
Yes. How we
Well, if HUD doesn't approve the RAD conversion, we have no reason to believe they wouldn't approve it. But if they don't approve it, we would continue to operate the building as public housing, and we would continue to work with the District of Columbia to assemble funds to continue the rehab work unit by unit.
And
I
do
think
you
that-
have any of those philanthropical people that may assist you? Have you reached out to any private investors? Or are you
not on
waiting
this.
till HUD does?
Yeah, not on this property. We have not. No. There have been some very preliminary conversations about philanthropic support. We don't really know how that would work. Apparently, the New York City Housing Authority has a philanthropic arm that they've created as a subsidiary. We don't know enough about that to really say much about whether we would want to do that or not. And for Judiciary House, we were planning on operating the building ourselves and not having any developer or private owner partners on the project. So we were thinking we would continue to operate it as DCHA under a name like Judiciary House LLC.
I see. All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Miller. I'm gonna mute your line. All right, Douglas Parker, you're unmuted. Do you have any questions or comments?
No question.
Okay, thank you. Francis Evans, you're unmuted. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I do have a question. Good afternoon, everyone. My question is, I live on the 5th floor, and I do have dish, and it's hanging off of the railing. And I just want to know who's gonna pay for that to be removed, or how will I be getting my cable channels?
I understand. So it's on the railing now, and you
Yes.
want to know if they take it down, who's going to put it back up?
Or where it's gonna be for me to watch TV while you all are doing the balcony.
I understand. I'm going to ask Mr. Poles to jump in here with me on this one. Mr. Poles, if somebody's got a dish mounted on the balcony railing, what is our policy? Do you know?
That question, I'm not sure of exactly what the policy is. I will give a call to the project manager immediately after the meeting. And Ms. Evans, I'll get back to you, I guess, within an hour after the meeting is over.
Okay, and my second question I do have, I was listening to the lady talking about closing up the balcony doors, sealing the balcony doors. I have a problem with that as well. But I understand you do it for safety purposes. I do understand that. But I'm just saying, to seal me in, I just can't get with that either. But I just wanted to make a statement on that as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll take another look at that.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Evans. Gail Napper or Naper? Ms. Gail, you're unmuted. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon. This is Katrina.
Yes.
What we need to do is contact your service provider. It's my understanding that transferring of the dish is about $200 and some. So we need to contact your service provider. We need to get an estimate of what that cost will be, because I understand that Dish has to remove the dishes independently. We can't do it. And I don't know if it'll still be permitted. I know some properties are changing that, but that's a PMO question. But we will reimburse you or pay for the cost of transferring those services. But I need you to do the first step, which is contacting Dish, find out what the cost of that will be, so that we can schedule it around the date that you move.
Thank you, Katrina. I have the line muted, but thank you for answering that. And we'll also include that in our question and answer follow-up. Okay, so the next person I see on here is Gabriel Rogoff. Or Gabrielle Rogoff?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're unmuted now. Did you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, sorry. I noticed in the slides that the discussion was mostly about phase 1 and 2, but I did see at one point, I think, for Judiciary House that it talked about a phase 3 and 4. Is that just going to come later, if it does come, with the RAD funding?
Yeah, so currently we have district funding sufficient to do multiple, building-wide improvements and about 118 apartments of full rehab. And the balance of the work, everything that you see that's in white from unit -10 all the way around the building to -26, we don't have funding for those yet. And so the idea of the RAD conversion was to provide long-term sustainable operating funding for the building and also allow us to tap into low-income housing credits and other funding streams to finance the continued renovations of all the units that are in white in the building so that we can completely renovate all of the units in the building. That was the plan.
Okay, so just to reiterate that, just to make sure I understand it. So
Sure.
The units in white, those are way down the line after you secure additional private and maybe philanthropic funding?
That's the plan at this point, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and mute your line. All right. The next person, Jacqueline Robinson, did you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. I'm located on the 4th floor, and I want to know if I'm at phase 1 or 2.
Okay.
We can help you with that.
Yeah.
Put up the plan again, the typical floor plan.
I'm on the 4th floor.
Okay.
I want to know if I'm at phase.
Right. So if you're in 407, 408, or 409, then you would have already been notified of a transfer. So you're not in that phase.
No.
If you're in 427, 428, or 401, your unit renovation will start in about 6 months from now, which means you'll probably be getting an outreach from Ms. Jeter in about 4 or 5 months. If you're not in 27, 28, or 01, if you're in 402, 403, 404, 405, or 406, you'll be getting an outreach from the mobility team, probably Ms. Jeter, sometime next year. And if you're not in any of those unit numbers, your work would be taking place beyond next year.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Glad to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Welcome.
All right. Maya Brennan, you're unmuted. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, you can move on.
Thank you. Mia Pelzer, did you have any questions or comments? You're unmuted. Mia, are you with us? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and mute the line. Mr. Momo, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, my question is about my rent. Mr. Pooh has my file, and I gave him all the details, and there's nothing I've done since the shutdown, and I don't want to bother him because he's a very nice manager, but he promised to visit my case. I had nothing for the past 5 months from him, and I've been paying too much. You have my file. Mr. Poole is with you right there. Can you let me answer my question? Because they are very hard to get.
Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't catch all of that. Did any of my colleagues catch that?
Not really. Sir, if you want to try that question again.
Yeah, my question is that when I got a raise of $12, the housing checked me. They took $7 from the $12, and they left me with only $4. And then I gave Mr. Poole all my details because my insurance went up, my death insurance. And then I gave him everything for the past 5 months. My rent, I've been paying too much. And he promised to help me out, but I have nothing from him. Every time I go to the office, he's always busy, and I can understand. I don't know whether he can answer that question for me right now. What is going on?
Okay. Okay, I think I got that, Mr. Momo. I think Mr. Poles, you've already received the details of his question and concern. Are you able to follow up with him offline?
About my rent?
About your rent, yes, that's correct.
Mr. Poles?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had completely lost my connection. Could you rephrase that question?
So it's a question. It's a question from Mr. Momo in regards to his rent and his rent increase. Are you able to follow up with him?
Yes, I can follow up with Mr. Momo directly after this meeting.
Okay. Mr. Momo, did you hear that? Mr. Poles is going to reach out to you directly.
Okay, thank you, ma. God bless you all.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and mute your line.
All right.
All right. Ms. Gaston, you're unmuted. Did you have any questions?
Yes, how you doing today?
Good, thank you.
We're good.
I'm trying to find out what do we do with the rent, because a lot of people's complaining they can't get it through online, and I'm trying to use the regular envelope. Can I use the regular envelope to mail the rent?
Can you use the regular mail to mail your rent check?
Okay, it has been coming in the mail, my rent payment that I paid the rent with. Can I continue on using that envelope to mail the rent in?
Does anyone on the call know the answer to that question, please?
I
do
know. Yes, Ms. Gaston.
There you go. Yes, I'm trying to figure out continue.
Yes, Gaston. Come down to the office after this meeting. I want to make sure you have the right envelope. And then two, the Rent Cafe is not mandatory, it's optional. You do not have to use the Rent Cafe.
Okay, because I've been mailing the regular envelope, but they send me in the mail. Is that okay to continue?
Yes, you can continue. I want you to come down because I want to make sure that you have the right envelope, because the envelopes have changed in the last 60 days.
Okay, is it going to Baltimore? That's all I need to know.
That is correct, yes.
So I have it. Another thing I wanted to ask you, when you all are due through the process of remodeling and everything, will we still have the same people at 1133, or will there be any changes?
I don't know the answer to that. Does anyone on the call know the answer to that?
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Gaston, we're trying to see if we have a staff member that can help you with that question. You said,
okay.
will it be the same people returning to the building?
Yeah,
Was that your question?
because everything is changing. I was wondering, will the workers, the staff change also?
Oh, with the staff change.
So are you saying at your property, or
right.
You mentioned 1133?
Within 1133.
Yeah, I mean, things as I think LaShawn, there we have no idea. We expect everything will be very similar, but people do change and leave jobs, so, but we anticipate for your property at Judiciary, it would continue to be managed by DCHA. That is our current plan.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and mute your line, Ms. Gaston. Nicole Dixon, do you have any questions or comments? Your line is unmuted.
Hello?
Yes. Do you have any questions or comments? If you have another phone
Hello,
on, you may.
this is Miss Chestnut again. Me and Miss Dixon is together. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, yes, we can hear you.
No, I did forget a couple of things. One thing I wanted to try to answer Mr. Evans, and I understood him very well about his $12, letting him know that they took all DC Housing took everybody $12, that $12 increase that we received. Also, I forgot about the balcony of mine. As far as my cable also is on the balcony, and they not only charge you for the transfer, but if you don't continue to have it, they also pay you for whatever the 1 year or 2 year contract that you're in, you have to pay. And what else did I have to say? As far as my rent, Lord God, y'all keep saying I owe y'all money. Y'all owe me credit. And I'm not understanding why every month I get so much that I owe. I have all my receipts. I don't owe you all anything. And like I say, I pay a little more than what I owe every month. So I want to know what's going on with that. Who's receiving our money and why isn't it being deducted? And I'm not the only one. Among us neighbors, we have been complaining about how much the papers say that our rental receipts state that we owe. And yeah. Hello?
Yeah, we're here. We hear you, Ms. Chestnut. Is there a DCHA staff member that can speak to the rent receipts?
Yes, Chestnut, this is Mr. Poles. Come on down to the office after the meeting and we can go over your ledger and bring the copies of the receipts that you have as well.
Okay. What else I needed to speak? I had a question also. I believe a young lady, I won't mention her name, don't have to where she can zoom in with you guys. But as far as her balcony was nailed down, my question is, I believe I heard someone else ask the same question. What if you all don't get the approval that you all need for the funds, and you all have already started tearing people's balconies down and also nailing them in? What are you all going to do right now? I feel like the pandemic is going crazy, right? And if you all should know the position that you all are in, that the pandemic is getting worse. And the second thing is, and soon I feel, I don't know how many others feel, that when it gets worse, first of all, we still in stage 2, phase 2, my correction. And so if it's going to get worse and even worse, then aren't we going to get locked down? And how is that you all have created that we're going to get funds? How, if this lockdown occurs again, like we were as far as not being able to leave our homes, only if we go to the store and back or however, how are we going? And by us also living in a senior citizen building, I want to ask that question. How, if we are denied because we are going to get locked down permanently for a while, what are y'all going to do about that?
I'll take the first question. The balcony work is fully funded with DC Council funds from last year. And so we already have the money to finish that project.
Okay, that was my main question.
We're not going to take your railing off and then not finish. We're going to finish that project. The other question about COVID, I don't think anybody on this phone call can answer. COVID is it's a scary time for everybody, and we're trying to manage and muddle through this just like everybody else. We don't know any better than anyone else does about what the future holds relative to the pandemic. But I think we're all working at DCHA to ensure that to the greatest extent possible, you and your fellow residents are safe. We can't guarantee that there'll be no illness in the building, but we can do what we can to try to provide isolation and social distancing so that we reduce the risk to you and your neighbors. And that's what we're always trying to do.
Okay, thank you. You really answered my main question, and Mr. Poole's requested that I come see him, and I thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you all. And just as a reminder to our callers, we just want to make sure that for this meeting, this is a platform, and the meeting is this platform for this meeting is related to the RAD process and repairs currently at Judiciary House. So if you have any specific concerns regarding your unit for maintenance or rent, to make sure that you follow up directly with Mr. Poles outside of this meeting so that we can make sure we address the RAD questions. So again, if you just have rent concerns or maintenance specific issues that are not related to the repairs currently happening at Judiciary, to follow up with Mr. Poles directly. And so with that reminder, I'm going to complete see who is next and open up the floor to Ms. Tammy Proctor. Do you have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. Virginia Jackson, do you have any questions or comments? You're unmuted.
Oh, no, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Warren Shields, you are open to ask any question or comment. Warren Shields. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute your line. All right, I think we have Michael from Washington Interfaith Network. Do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm opening up a line. I don't have a name. It just says owner, but you are unmuted.
That's Janice Farabee, ANC2F08. How are you all?
Good, thank you.
I just wanted to thank you all for just adding some clarity. I know people had a lot of questions, and just for the in-depth information, and I look forward to just staying on top of the process with you all. And if there's anything I can do, I know I'm not the ANC in your area, but if there's anything I can do, because we've been working with Judiciary House, I'd be more than happy to be of service.
Thank you
very
Ms.
much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna read the line, and then I'm just gonna make one last effort, I think, to go to. I have two callers that haven't been identified, so I'm just gonna try to capture their name and their question and comments before we close the call. So I have a caller with the number 202-737. You're unmuted. Can you give your name and let us know if you have any questions or comments?
This is Pastor Tom Knoll I'm with WIN. I'm the church down the block from Judiciary House. Just thankful to the staff for doing this and just listening in.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have another caller 202-905. You are unmuted.
This is Karen Carroll.
Hi, Ms. Carroll. Did you have any questions or comments?
No, I think things are going along fine.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna add you to the attendance list, and then with that, I'm gonna open the floor back to my colleagues, Alex or Jose or Andrea. Did you have any closing remarks before we end this meeting with Judiciary House?
I don't.
I don't either.
I would like to thank everybody for joining us, though. I think it was a very good conversation, and we had some very good questions. I have some follow-up notes that I'm going to make sure to circle back on. And we are doing another meeting at 6, so you don't have to attend, but if you want to attend, there will be a similar run of show, and we'll have other questions from other neighbors of yours at Judiciary House. And we're happy to answer as many questions as are posed and provide direction.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Yep, and I just like to reiterate that if your neighbors or other residents that you know were not able to make the meeting, please let them know that we'll be back on at 6 o'clock. We also will have this meeting link available on dcha.us, also along with the follow-up, along with the question and answers piece as well. We'll provide that document. So thank you all very much for your time and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Well, take care.